job is to sell movies to customers who want them, and you can only sell movies that they want to see, obviously. And I'm guessing you also get feedback from customers sometimes if they don't like a particular movie, they blame you as opposed to the filmmaker. And I have my own thoughts on this, but I think it's important for everyone to understand that someone whose livelihood depends on the customers actually getting what they want. So it's actually more important for them to say what they prefer, message or medium or doing this for a long time.
Got the shirt
So I personally have this with you.
Really?
I care about medium versus message and what the complaints typically are when they do.
Yeah, well, I may be in trouble with my job because I do have to be, or we have to be concerned about what the audience wants and what they expect. Yet at the same time, we're particularly, maybe more than other companies, concerned about content and quality. We're very sensitive about, the quality of a script, and the quality of acting and so forth. And so, and oftentimes, there'll be something with a really strong message, but the quality isn't there, the artistry isn't there, and it's sometimes an internal, not argument but discussion. It's like, well, is it good enough? Can you overlook that? Is that, do you say, you overlook that because the message is there, the quality of the message and the intent and the heart is there. My thing is that argument that, well, it's not very good, but the message, to me, sometimes that phrase, the medium is the message. I guess Marshall McLuhan said that, and he meant something else that I don't completely pretend to understand. But to me, when I think of that, I think how you communicate becomes what you communicate in a way. If your script is bad and you're talking about Jesus, the most important and real thing in the universe, person in the universe, but you're doing it poorly, or simplistically, or in a way that oversimplifies, or then what are you communicating about Jesus? If the acting is bad, what are people to make of the message? Well, they didn't really care enough to have competent acting to portray this, so why should I take what they're saying seriously? So we go back and forth. I guess what does the audience want? It's hard to figure out. There are certain things that that work, and a lot of it is sort of the lighter Hallmark kind of fare that's not very challenging, and it's fine and it's good, and there's value to it, but not dealing with hard-hitting themes necessarily, or in a very deep way. And some of the movies that we've been involved in co-producing are, tend to take on issues like, suicide or things like that. And people get scared when they hear those hard issues, because it's going to get, they think that's going to be taxing. That's going to be hard. I want to be entertained, or I want to feel good. So it's that constant tension.
You've been doing this for a really long time. You guys have distributed thousands of films.
Yeah.
Not all of them have been high quality.
Right.
Like
They're guilty as charged.
It wasn't Bill, but I actually had a distribution company tell me we don't have quality, so we have to keep the pipeline full, so we're going for quantity. Because they've got an organization that's meant to distribute this, but they still got to keep everything going. So it's like a catch-22 for a company who's trying to put out quality, but if there's not quality there,
Yeah, and there's a
I
different
didn't
kind
cut
of.
you off, I'm sorry.
No, you should, but I mean, some of the, there's been very successful faith-based films for even 30 years ago that were really awfully shot.
Yeah.
But like, people still
Yeah.
want that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, our company started with The Cross and the Switchblade.
That was a good movie. Yeah.
Which, when you watch it now, is like, oy. And maybe if you watched it then,
Yeah, but
you
even
know.
then, if it was in theaters, it wasn't as good as.
Right.
True. Hollywood.
Yeah. But people love that. And
Yep.
It's still like
Even
one.
tonight, I mean, that's really cheesy.
It's still like one of the highest sellers for us because people recognize the name and
I bought that.
remember it, and and there's
I know
there's
a
certain
guy
audience
who-
that just wants that. They want the message. It's the message, and we don't care
I should
about
talk to him.
anything else. But at the same time, I think there's a responsibility to bring people along, maybe gently, and say, well, yeah, here, there is the message, and let's show you how we can do it even better. Let's show you how we can, make you think even deeper about the message. Maybe make you think something, you didn't think before, or have an insight that you didn't have before. So yeah.
Would it be safe to say that a lot of that starts in the script?
Yes.
I mean, you got acting, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely in the story. And
I'm still learning how to do this film festival stuff. We have one more panelist, sorry. Tyler Smith, he's a critic.
Woo!
Thomas!
Sorry about that. Well, now Kevin's in the middle, sort of, so it works out good.
yeah, for our films, we decided we wanted to take subject matters that can be dark, like cyberbullying or or removing God from our country and everything, and do it in a really fun way that people can enjoy it. Switched is about anti-bullying, especially on the internet, but we did it very Mean Girls meets Freaky Friday, and because like suicide, trying to handle suicide, it's so heavy, and I really want to talk to the youth, so I want kids to be able to show it to people over and over and over, and that's sort of where we've been trying to think, like, how do we wrap a really big message, like Wish for Christmas, she wishes that her parents didn't believe in God. Well, what's going on in our country, and people continue to want to remove God from our society. What would that look like if God was removed? So that was our big conversation, but then we wrapped it up in a Wish movie and a fun, cute teen girl movie. So that's kind of where we've been trying to do it. Plus, I think that there's so much heaviness in faith-based that I wanted to look at the lighter side of it and do things that I didn't get when I was a kid,
Do you think, I want to talk to the two critics, do you think that... Bad word?
No.
Right? I know.
I don't want to
So-
anyways. That's happened before.
So,
I'm real defensive. I'm real insecure.
Aw.
I get hitting. I'm fine.
so do you guys feel like us as filmmakers, like I've been to film festivals where I've heard people talk about you got to do a better job at writing and not be so-and-so on the nose, and then we'll say, for instance, watch this scene. And it's a scene where they're over-dialogued and it's on the nose and all that stuff. Why do you think that we as filmmakers struggle with seeing what you see sometimes?
Wow, great. I think that it stems very much from putting message before story, before craft. I think it's so important to...
Could you talk louder?
A little bit louder. I could try. Sorry about that.
Don't be so critical.
It's so early. Wow, here we go. I can't.
Surprising that he's the loudest one.
What is this? What is this? Getting up on Kevin?
It's a very refreshing energy.
I feel like I've asked for this, and I'm getting what I've asked for, so that's fine. I appreciate it. What were we talking about? Something about putting message before story.
Why do we not get it?
At 4 o'clock today, I'll be talking more about that a little bit. And but I think that it's because it's something that's very important to us. So it's kind of this Chinese finger trap where it's very important to you to put this message out there. And in a lot of ways, that's the reason why you're making the film to begin with. we want to tell kids about, about bullying, or we want to share this idea. And this isn't just in Christian movies, it's in a lot of different types of movies. You have this idea that you want to put out there and impact people with. But it's this catch-22 of when it's solely the main focus is putting that message out there, then a lot of times the creative aspect takes a back seat. But it's that creative aspect that can be the vehicle that carries the message. And it makes it, I think audiences or maybe just critics, I don't know, because I know audiences, I say all this, but yet movies that are very on the nose do well. So it's hard for me to say, well, this is how you do this thing, and then audiences will be able to tell whenever you're trying to be a Trojan horse for the gospel. But I think when I watch a lot of Christian movies, that's how it feels. It's kind of that, I don't know if you remember that like rap song. It was like these two old people at a church and they're like rapping for Jesus, and it's very cheesy. Well, you know that those two old people are not passionate about the rap game. The way that maybe Kanye West or Lil Wayne or somebody, like that's what those guys do. And you know, when they rap, they're passionate about this thing. And I can mention Kanye now since he's Christian. But so when you watch somebody who's like, I'm watching these two old people do a rap song, they're doing it because it's this attempt to relate with the kids. And so it's very hard and a little bit cringy when you watch that, and a lot of Christian movies feel the same way, because it's like, we really want to tell people about Jesus, and we've heard that the best way to do this new thing called movies, is a good way to reach the kids. And I can sense that, I can feel that. And maybe it's not true, maybe I'm sensing something that's not there, but it seems that way to me from my perspective, that I'm watching something where these aren't people who are passionate about making a film and telling a story that they feel really needs to be told. They're trying to kind of make a Trojan horse that they can get you into the theater to watch a movie so that they can tell you,
It's like bait and switch.
yeah, hey kids, we're having pizza. Come on in, but we're gonna make sure we tell them about the gospel, and that's the real reason. And I don't know, it's a bit of maybe not blatant, but it feels like a betrayal. Maybe the audiences don't necessarily know why they have that feeling, but it feels like a betrayal. Like you said, you didn't put the effort into learning how to write quality dialogue, or talking to somebody who does understand how to write quality dialogue, that would not just outright, here's the thing that you need to learn, but there's a craftful way to write quality dialogue. I think that watching The Chosen yesterday, that's a great example of, there's so much being told to you through visual, through circumstances, through conversations, that it feels like you're really watching real things happen. It's building a world. You're being a lot of stuff is being communicated to you without you actually having an opening crawl or it's saying it on the bottom of the screen, or voiceover or something like that.
Tyler, what do you think?
Yeah, the idea of critics seeing something that filmmakers don't, that's the nature of the beast there. Like,
It's
not the
easy to say,
biblical
well,
beast.
You
Pardon
guys
me,
are just
sorry.
mean. Right?
What was that?
It's easy to say, well, you're just mean.
Yeah, well, but it's also easy for critics to say, you should do that better. You know, the fact is, a critic sees everything. They see every movie, not every film that they can. They are only as limited as they let themselves be. However, if you are a filmmaker in the Christian industry, there's a lot of limitations in the industry. For the most part, I would say R rating, that's out. Even PG-13, that's out. We're talking about the idea of, I forget what the exact premise is, but like, what would a world without God look like? I have a pretty good idea of what it would look like, and I don't trust a Christian filmmaker to show it, frankly, because and I don't blame them. They're working within an industry that is very limiting by its very nature, which is, you need to have this message or some version of this message. You cannot incorporate this kind of content. And so when you're dealing with limitations, sometimes artistic limitations can be great. You know, the shark's not working in Jaws, so we hide it until the end, which makes it more of a payoff. So that can work, but when you have so many limitations, I feel like there's only so effective, and I would say there's only so organic that these films can be. And so that's the thing is, critics they're freer to observe that, but they also don't have to worry about getting funding. They don't have to worry about losing their audience. So like it's a well.
Not in that aspect.
I'm one of like 8 people that has a negative review of Toy Story 4 on Rotten Tomatoes. And, I still get tweets from people. It's crazy. Anyway. Yeah. Well, and obviously that, you know, 98% as opposed to 100% makes a huge box office difference. Anyway. But no, I do think that like it's a different skill set, and I think you need both. You do need filmmakers who, frankly, have to think artistically and practically. That's a huge thing. Critics don't have to think practically. They can think purely theoretically, which is fun, and I think you do need that. But I think both parties need to cut the other slack, realizing that it's a different skill set, and I think both are necessary. But I do also think that just in general, the Christian film industry, which is getting better, considerably, I would say, I do think that there's a certain degree of tunnel vision, and I do think that perhaps one of the reasons, to go back to your initial question, that critics see something that maybe a filmmaker doesn't, is that when you're operating with a lower budget and that sort of thing, often you're showing your script, you're telling your ideas to people that have a vested interest in making you feel good. Family members, friends, that sort of thing. And so that is immediately going to limit, going back to that idea of limitation, that's immediately going to limit the quality of your output. Like, you do need someone who's willing to be, I would say, not harsh, but honest, lovingly. Which is why I'm so excited that in the last 10 to 15 years, there have been so many Christian critics who are well versed in film, but they are also, it frustrates me when I see a good Christian film and then so many non-Christian critics just dismiss it, and it's like, and I want to say, no, you don't understand how much worse it could have been. But I do genuinely think that there's an inherent distrust of the message that might actually make them ignore some of the medium in that instance. So I do think that in the Christian world, it's like that idea, I forget in what book it was, but C.S. Lewis was talking about, like, in a Christian society, you don't, in like an ideal Christian society, you don't have a pastor run for governor. You have a Christian politician run for governor, and the pastor does what he does. Like, ideally in the Christian film industry, you don't have like a gaffer direct something. You have him do his job, director does his job, the critics do their job, and we all work together and cut each other a lot of slack so that this can get incrementally better.
Yeah.
But it takes time, and it takes a lot of grace. And there are a lot of critics who, and I've been one of them, frankly, a lot of critics who make their bones on like bashing Christian film and showing that, like, and essentially, I don't think this is always it, but saying to the rest of the world, like, no, I don't like them either, guys. I'm with you. Yeah. And I've fallen prey to that. It's very hard not to, because it lends credibility to your opinion in circles that can be good for your career. So, anyway, that's a long way of saying that, like, the world of logistics and theory do need to listen to each other. It is separate skill sets that I think would benefit tremendously if they talked more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. And so one of the questions too is, for a Christian filmmaker, you guys are comparing our $500 million film to a $50 million film or a $10 million film, and so we are, because we did it, we understand why. That's not your job to understand why. Your job is to review that. But real quick, I want to come back to you, Shit. I have a question about, so how, like, should that be taken into consideration? The limitations when even audience, because audiences had given us a pass because we're singing their song, and sometimes to an unfair point. But so how far do we just stop making films till we get 50 million? Do we, I mean, what's the answer?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the answer, but for sure, I mean, my last film was $400,000. The Kendrick brothers came out with a $5 million movie, and so forth and so forth. So you're right, like, when you're at low budget, it's, I don't know, I mean, you just keep having to prove yourself so that you can get to the next level, the next level, the next level. I started with like $10,000 and working my way up, but we still have a responsibility to do a quality film if we're going to put something out and try to sell it. So, I mean, I hire all filmmakers, so everybody on my set has actually been working on Avengers or something else, and they know what they're doing, so that has helped the quality of my films be elevated, because I'm not just getting volunteers, I am hiring filmmakers to do their job. I don't want to like cop out and be like, because my film has less money, it's not fair to compare me to a bigger movie, but that is true.
You and Kevin
So,
can arm wrestle.
to piggyback on that, I will say that, I don't think saying like, well, our budget was really low, because a high budget is not a guarantee of quality either. I'm not looking to bash Overcomer. What I will say though is that, $5 million budget, and here's something that I noticed as I was watching it. In that entire, who here has seen Overcomer? How many scenes take place at night? One? Maybe? Like, that's weird. That's a weird choice. And I genuinely feel like, as much as I actually do respect Alex Kendrick and his approach towards films, and they're very personal, but I think that you can see where it doesn't matter what the budget is. There are things he's not comfortable with, and he's not going to push himself beyond that comfort zone, nor does he have to, because the audience is going to see it anyway. So you wind up with a movie like Overcomer because, hey, shooting at night, it's kind of hard. You got to get lights going and all that, and so like you can utilize $400,000. I'm not saying you aren't, but like a $400,000 movie can look amazing, and a $5 million movie can look pretty generic.
Yeah, I had a thought. So I just met with Hulu, and I sent them my first faith-based Catching Faith, and I was very honest about the budget. I said it's only a $75,000 film. And the head of development called me and said, holy moly, I can't believe you made that movie with $75,000. So I used it for my advantage. Like, if this is what I can do with 75, imagine what I can do if I worked for your company. And that's actually where you can end up making that. If it's good quality at a very low budget, then you can use that to your advantage to say, I could do so much better if I had more.
I think that's a really key point, and that's something that I say at almost every panel discussion or any time anyone asks for advice, is I use the term, don't drink wine on a beer salary. And I know in Christian circles that may be a weird phrase to use, but it means work with what you have and embrace that and emphasize that. So, one of the most successful films of the last 15 years, profit-wise, was Blair Witch Project, which was done for, less than $50,000. And they just embraced that and made a found footage kind of film. When you try to make a big budget film on a low budget, it ends up looking like a poor man's version of a good movie. But when you just go, okay, I've got $500,000, so I'm going to stick to, this is going to be a character drama or a character comedy. Some of the Academy Award winners of the last 15 years were films with very low budgets. Budget doesn't impact whether or not you can tell a good story. It does, however, and this has happened a lot in the Christian market, is you'll see like Rapture films where the budget was clearly less than $1 million, but they were trying to make it look like a $30 million film or a $100 million film.
Yeah.
And it just exposes that they didn't have the money to do it. So stick to your lane. I'm doing that right now with The Chosen, which, yes, we were able to raise a fair amount of money, comparatively speaking, but we don't have Game of Thrones style money. So we're not going to make a big sweeping sword and sandals epic with big crowd scenes. We're going to focus on character, and we're going to stay in this kind of a smaller scope. And that's actually been the thing that people have responded to, is the character development and whatnot. So if I tried to try to fit in some big shots with huge crowd scenes, it would just expose the fact that I'm not Game of Thrones, and it would make me look even worse. So stick with what you have, and then the audience doesn't think about what they're not seeing. They're not thinking,
Yep.
well, why aren't I seeing 1,000 people? Because you're not in a scene with 1,000 people. That's okay. And they don't think that. They're enjoying what's in front of them. So,
Yep.
but anytime you expand your scope when you don't have the money to do it, it exposes you and makes you look worse.
I can't remember what I was going to say. No, I mean, I will say that as in all of my reviews, I take a lot into consideration, and I never say, well, but this other movie was able to do this that has $1 million budget, but so why couldn't this movie do it? I mean, I kind of, in a way, like the movie Samson, I was critical of that movie, and I compared it a little bit to Gladiator, even though it had a different budget, but that's because Gladiator knew that it had the budget to do it, and I feel like the movie Samson didn't have the budget in it, and it did what you're talking about. It attempted to do something epic, even though it didn't have the ability to do it, and it exposed the fact that they didn't have the ability to do it, except for a few specific scenes.
The more agenda driven that you are, the better you have to be at writing and your craft.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that as far as are we more agenda driven than we have talent?
So that's a really, really good point. I hadn't heard it actually put that way. I'm going to start using that because
You can use that.
because some of the most famous and successful shows on Netflix right now are 100% agenda driven. Like they're sermons.
What does
So
that mean?
what's the name of the Ava DuVernay
pushing their idea on you.
miniseries about the Central Park Five?
This is
The-
They're pushing one on you.
When they see us,
Their
yeah.
agenda, their
So that is
thought process.
that is a absolute message driven, and she does a lot of message driven films. She's only did 13th, the documentary. And then 13 Reasons Why. No, she did a documentary about
The 13th.
about the 13th Amendment and the systemic racism and whatnot. Making a Murderer, was a hugely successful. Those are documentaries are by nature, by definition, message films. But these films and these series are massively successful because they're actually produced extraordinarily well. And I would actually say to some filmmakers who make fictional dramas, Christian filmmakers who make fictional dramas, I sometimes think that message would actually be much better in a really good documentary, would cost you less money, and you could probably get away more with being so on the nose, because documentaries are on the nose, they're message films. You just do it really, really well. It's probably more in your skill set, actually.
Like Bethany, the shark girl, with
Right, yes.
missing, that was,
Yeah. So I just go, there are plenty of incredible filmmakers who've had incredible success with documentaries that got their message out and got it out to millions and millions of people. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's not, I think we said this yesterday, it is not being explicit in your message that turns people off. It's doing it poorly or untruthfully that turns people off. And so, again, some of the more successful shows on Netflix were bold-faced sermons, just that they're not religious, but they're bold-faced sermons, on the nose, absolutely making a message, telling you where you can call a number to support. It is absolutely on the nose. They don't even hide it, and they're extraordinarily successful because they did it really well.
That happens all the time in music. If you think about Christian artists that passed over, it's not because they watered down their message. They were as good or better than, going all the way back.
Not passed over.
Passed over. Passed over. Like, all the way back when I was a kid, Striper they didn't minimize their message. They were just as.
I can only imagine. It's
And-
one of the most successful songs of all time. It was number one on the charts.
And even like NF now. is
People wanna
competing-
That's because that song's so good.
Yeah, but you can no, but I mean, you can criticize the artistry if you want or whatever,
Yeah.
but it's a song people listened to in their car and wanted to hear it again, and period, end of story. They wanted to listen to that song.
And even in the secular, and like I was saying, NF is now competing with Eminem. He has not pulled his message at all. He's a blatant Christian, but he's just as good, and people are arguing better. So it's like what you're saying. Are you good? Besides the two opinions. Well, like the other thing that's interesting is Kid Rock, who's like a 5 Grammy nomination guy, the military hired him to do a campaign with the military, and he wrote a song called Warrior for them. It's horrible. It's absolutely awful because and it was just, he struggled with the same thing. He has a huge agenda, and he had to cross certain, he had to jump through hoops and do certain things. And somebody who's extremely good at their craft, proven so, just bombed. I mean, it was horrible.
Which, interesting point, he also has a song called Jesus and Bocephus, and it's an extraordinarily Jesus saved his life. Devine, it is a blatantly Christian song to play on the fish, and but because rock did it, and it's really good, and it's a beautiful country song, no one thought, oh, quit preaching at me.
Yeah.
That's so on the nose.
Yeah.
It wasn't the message that bothers people.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's oftentimes, and it's so hard because it's such a blurry line to know why it is. But I don't think it's good to make an excuse to say, well, it's probably because of my message that people don't like my thing. It may be because of that. It may be that you are a Christian and they just don't like Christians, and that does happen. But I wouldn't make that assumption, and I wouldn't act on that, because then you're not going to challenge yourself in other aspects that you could improve on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to earn the right to have a message, would you say? I mean, people who listen to great music, they may not want to agree with the sentiment that's being portrayed, but they can't help but be pulled into it and go, that makes me feel something. Recognizable and relatable, and you feel for them, and you want to know what's going to happen to them. You're pulled in, and if that person's life involves Christ and faith, I mean, you at that point you earn the right to speak to the audience. But if it's propaganda, it's easy to spot.
Look, it's just a matter of time before we start.
Agenda.
That's the thing is, I absolutely agree that, like, a movie having a message, every movie has a message, even if they don't mean to. And so the question is, like, that's not a thing. It's all about how committed the filmmaker is or the artist in general, in the case of music and all that, how committed they are to just really embracing quality. It could be a storytelling situation, it could be visual, whatever it is. And so there's an amazing film called Battleship Potemkin from 1925. It was a Soviet propaganda film. The government paid for it. That was an actual propaganda film. And yet, for all kinds of stuff. Not to mention, then you also get. Then you also have, obviously, Triumph of the Will. Look, the point is that birth. And what's interesting is Birth of a Nation is like seen as this landmark film, right? And then something like Triumph of the Will is so undeniably a story, and the director Sergei Eisenstein used the opportunity. As I incorporate these messages, I can do whatever I want.
Nice.
And he revolutionized editing. Like, you watch the Odessa Step sequence, is the most famous part of the film. You watch any disaster movie, any action movie now, that much he revolutionized it. And there's a reason that I show it to my classes. There's a reason that I learned about it in film school. There's a reason we know about it. And it's not because we're all Soviets. It's not because we're like, you know what? I think that Stalin had some good ideas. No, it's because the artistry was so blatant and so uncompromising and undeniable to such an extent that after a while, the artistry actually, and that's a film with a message, the artistry was so good, it outlived the message, it outlived the propaganda, it outlived the Soviet Empire. I feel like so it doesn't even really matter what the message is. Like, obviously it does for us, but like, if you just say, like, I'm going to make the best possible, within my budget, within my limitations, the best possible as much as is possible, nobody can deny that that is a good performance. I know good acting, and that's good acting. That's a good score. That's a good line. I don't agree with it, but I like that. And before you know it, you know, Oliver Stone's JFK is an amazing film, regardless of what you think about the Kennedy assassination. Brilliantly edited, wonderfully acted, wonderfully shot, an amazing score by John Williams. And it's just, and so even people that don't agree with it say like, well, I can't argue with that, as far from a quality standpoint. And I feel like once, like, I feel like once Christians get the message, I think that's when we can start to get to a point where even if some critics do call it propaganda, which they always will, they'll get to a point where they're like, well, I don't agree with it any more than I agree with Battleship Potemkin, but that's good.
Yeah. And they're not only, when you're talking about quality, that it's not just about bigger cameras.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they'll get money and they'll put that in, work on acting, directing, that kind of thing. They'll put it into equipment and stuff, and so it's just prettier junk.
I keep thinking about, because I was very, very positive about, and which is weird because I was very negative about the movie God's Not Dead 1 and 2, and I find that movie very fascinating, the third one, because I feel like it does that. Here, Mason, whatever his the name of the director of the movie. Uh, uh, he used a pseudonym. The real guy didn't want his name on the film, but he's a very
Wow.
talented